same old train that brought me here is gonna carry me away again.
So hi, my name's Tom Hansell. I'm an independent filmmaker who teaches at Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina. And I've been asked to talk a little bit about a project called the Trash Trout Motion Picture Show. The Trash Trout Motion Picture Show is a collaborative film and performance project that visualizes the impacts of plastic pollution along the New River. I've also been asked to talk about how I created the film, and I think it's important to note that this project is the result of years of collaboration between myself and organizations working to clean up the New River, especially in the headwaters region where I live. And one of the more interesting projects to clean up the river is called the Trash Trout. So the Trash Trout is a passive stormwater debris collection device, basically a pontoon boat with chain link fences instead of a platform. It sits in headwater streams and it collects the plastic and whatever trash is floating down on the surface of the river while it lets anything under the river go through. So for this project, I worked with the town of Boone and the Watauga Riverkeeper to collect plastic bags and other refuse from a trash trout near the town of Boone's Greenway. Then we invited folks to a series of free public workshops where participants taped trash to 16mm film strips that look like this. With the help of dozens of volunteers, we created 300 linear feet of film with trash and magic marker. After the workshops, I carefully spliced the individual film clips together into this reel. And finally, I worked with local musicians to create a soundtrack that's performed live as the film is projected. The Trash Trout Motion Picture Show is part of a long-term collaborative project that I call the Ancient New. The Ancient New uses the power of culture, and in this case, film and music and dance, to connect people to the sources that sustain us, and particularly the freshwater resources here in the Appalachian Mountains. You know, our bodies are 60% water, our planet is covered with 70% water, and yet fresh water is a very scarce and valuable resource. Locally, the headwaters of the New River, right here that I'm standing in, and the entire New River Valley that flows through Virginia and West Virginia is part of major American river systems. They flow to the Ohio and the Mississippi. So the water that flows through our communities literally touches millions of people downstream. And with the Ancient New project, I'm looking to figure out ways where we can understand our connections to each other, to understand our responsibilities to each other, and to work to create healthy communities all along this river valley. So I also want to point out that I did not make this film alone. First, I need to thank the North Carolina Arts Council, a division of the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, for financial support. But I also need to thank my community collaborators, and particularly the town of Boone and the Watauga Riverkeeper and the New River Conservancy for helping organize all of the volunteers. And of course, there were more than 30 volunteers that contributed to the Trash Trout Motion Picture Show. All those people are vitally important. Without them, this film and project would not have happened. I also need to thank my musical collaborators, in particular Julie Shepherd-Powell, who's not just a musician, but also a flatfoot dancer and an environmental anthropologist. So she's really used multiple art forms to try to communicate some of the power and the cultures that connect to the river. Trevor McKenzie is the other musical collaborator. He's director of the Center for Appalachian Studies, originally from rural Retreat, Virginia. He learned music at Jim Lloyd's barbershop there and has gone on to do a number of recordings and play in a number of bands. Trevor and Julie together have a real deep knowledge of musical traditions along the New River Valley, and they drew on that deep well of knowledge to provide a soundtrack that, although it may seem a little experimental, is really grounded in the traditions right here in communities along the New River Valley. So sometimes people ask me if there were difficulties creating this film, and I would say, unfortunately, one of the difficulties was the sheer amount of trash that we had to deal with. It's amazing when you start getting in the river and picking it up how much of a footprint that humans leave. So after the volunteers collected the garbage, I spent many hours sorting it and cleaning it so it could stick to the film strips during the workshops. And then after the workshops, I spent many hours cleaning those film strips so that they could go smoothly through the projector. So all of that was not insurmountable difficulties, but certainly time-consuming tasks. Another task that was time-consuming but very rewarding was coordinating the dozens of volunteers and coordinating with the primary partner organizations. All of that takes a lot of time, but I find that it's really valuable because it increases the impact of the project. Really, it's how a project makes a difference, is by engaging these community organizations. I've also been asked to talk about what I hope people will take away after watching this film. So I think this is a little bit of a difficult question to answer, but in general, I hope that people will gain a greater understanding or appreciation of their connections to freshwater ecosystems. I also hope that people become aware of small steps that they can take to improve the ecosystems in their backyard. I hope that folks will figure out how they might be able to get involved in improving water quality or supporting the numerous organizations that are working to protect freshwater resources in Appalachia. Finally, I want to say that my long-term vision for the Ancient New Project is to have a whole series of these kinds of events all along the New River Valley, where local organizations and local artists and myself collaborate on events that celebrate the river and celebrate the people and the cultures that are protecting the river. So I hope that you might be able to join us in one of these events in the future, and I thank you for watching the Trash Trout Motion Picture Show.
Thank